My name is Zina. The man I called my husband looked me in the eyes and called me Barren. I walked away from that marriage with nothing but shame. 5 years later, I returned with twins in my arms and a life nobody expected. Please like, share, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Welcome to Grace Folktales, where African stories are shared alive. Subscribe and click the notification bell to join our storytelling family. In the small hillside town of Kavuno, where red earth met green valleys, Zina stood in the narrow kitchen of the house she once called home. The morning light fell softly through the open window, touching the cracked paint on the wall. She held a metal cup in her hand, but her fingers were shaking. Across the room, her husband Reno leaned against the doorframe with his arms folded. His eyes were cold, the kind of cold that did not come from weather but from a heart that had already decided to turn away. "You are quiet again," Reno said, his voice sharp. "Every day you are quiet. Do you even hear me when I talk to you?" Zina swallowed. "I hear you," she replied softly. I don't know what else to say anymore." Reno laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You never know what to say. That is your problem. 5 years of marriage, Zina. 5 years. And what do I have to show for it?" She looked down at the floor. "We have each other," she whispered. Reno stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "Each other does not give a man a name. Each other does not give a man children. In this town, people laugh at me behind my back." Zina's chest tightened. "People will always talk. It does not mean we should listen to them." He shook his head. "You don't understand. A man without children is not respected here. And you are the reason." The words landed like stones in her chest. She had heard them before, but every time they hurt the same. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but her voice failed her. Reno turned away and walked toward the small wooden table in the corner of the room. On it lay his phone, vibrating softly. He picked it up and glanced at the screen, then smirked. "Even my mother called this morning," he said. "She asked me how long I planned to stay married to a barren woman." Zina flinched at the word. "Please don't call me that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Reno looked back at her. "If the name hurts you, then change the truth behind it." Her eyes filled with tears. "You think I chose this? You think I don't pray every night? You think I don't cry when you are asleep?" He sighed, tired and impatient. "Your tears don't change anything. I am tired of waiting. I am tired of shame." Zina stepped forward. "Let us go to the clinic again," the doctor said. "I have gone to enough clinics," Reno interrupted. "Every test comes back the same. They say there is nothing wrong with me." She hesitated. "They also said sometimes the problem is not one person alone. Sometimes it is both." Reno slammed his hand on the table. "Are you now saying the problem could be me?" Zina shook her head quickly. "No, I'm just saying we should face this together." Reno's eyes hardened. "I have faced it long enough. I want a wife who will give me children. I want a home with laughter, not this quiet house full of excuses." The silence that followed was heavy. Zina felt something break inside her, something she had been holding together for years. That night, Zina packed her small bag in silence. The room felt empty even before she left. Reno sat on the bed, watching her without offering to help. "So you are really going?" he asked. She nodded. "I cannot stay where I am called a curse." He scoffed. "Don't act like a victim. You are the one who failed." Zina paused, her hand resting on the zipper of her bag. "I did not fail you on purpose. I loved you. I still do." Reno looked away. "Love without children is useless to me." The words cut deep, but Zina forced herself to stand straight. "One day you will regret saying that," she said quietly. He laughed. "Regret? I will be busy raising my children with another woman." Zina picked up her bag and walked toward the door. At the doorway, she stopped and turned back. "I hope you find what you are looking for," she said. Reno did not answer. Outside, the evening air was cool against her wet cheeks. The road stretched ahead of her, uncertain and lonely. She did not know where she was going, only that she could not stay. As she walked away from the house, she carried nothing but her small bag and a heart full of pain. She did not know that this road, the same road she walked in tears, would one day lead her back with answers no one expected. Zina walked for a long time before she realized her feet were aching. The narrow road from Kavuno curved between banana trees and small farms. The sounds of the town faded behind her, replaced by the quiet of evening insects and distant voices. She stopped by the roadside and sat on her small bag, breathing slowly. A woman passing with a basket of cassava on her head paused. Are you traveling this late? The woman asked gently. Zina nodded. I am leaving home. The woman studied her face. Your eyes are full of tears. Home does not let you go easily, does it? Zina tried to smile. Sometimes, home is the place that hurts you the most. The woman sighed. Where will you go? I don't know yet, Zina admitted. The woman reached into her basket and handed her a piece of roasted corn. Take this. The road is long and hunger makes sadness heavier. Zina accepted it, surprised by the kindness of a stranger. Thank you. As the woman walked away, Zina stared at the road again. For the first time since leaving the house, she allowed herself to cry. Her shoulders shook, but she did not turn back. The pain of staying felt heavier than the fear of leaving. Paragraph 5. By the time she reached the small bus stop at the edge of town, the sky had turned dark blue. A single bus waited there, its engine humming softly. The driver, a tall man with tired eyes, looked at her bag. Where are you headed? He asked. Nyara City, Zina replied after a moment. She had heard of the city as a place where no one cared about your past. The driver nodded. It's a long ride. Do you have the fare? She checked her pocket and counted the little money she had saved in secret over the years. I have enough for the seat, she said. He waved her in. Sit near the window. The road at night can be rough. As the bus moved, Zina watched the lights of Kavuno disappear. Her phone vibrated. Reno's name flashed on the screen. For a moment, her heart jumped. She let it ring. When it stopped, she turned the phone off. A young man sitting beside her glanced over. Running from something? He asked lightly. Zina shook her head. I am running toward peace. He smiled. That is a good direction. The bus rolled on through the dark, carrying her away from the life she knew into a future she could not yet imagine. Nyara City greeted her with noise and light. Motorbikes weaved through traffic, vendors called out prices, and music spilled from open shops. Zina stepped off the bus feeling small among the tall buildings and rushing people. She hugged her bag close to her chest. At the corner near the bus park, a woman selling tea looked up. You look lost, she said kindly. Zina nodded. I am new here. I need a place to sleep. The woman pointed down the street. There is a small guest house there. It is cheap and clean. Zina thanked her and walked toward the guest house. The room she got was small, with one bed and a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. She sat on the bed and let out a long breath. The silence in the room felt different from the silence at home. This one did not carry insults. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her younger cousin Mira. Zina, where are you? Mira asked anxiously. I left Kavuno, Zina said. What? Why didn't you tell me? I needed to breathe, Zina replied. There was a pause. You can stay with me if you need help, Mira offered. Zina smiled faintly. Thank you. Let me find my feet first. She lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a life could end and begin in the same night. The next morning, Zina went out early to look for work. She walked from shop to shop, asking if they needed help. Most people shook their heads. Some looked at her tired clothes and turned away without a word. By midday, her legs felt heavy. At a small tailoring shop, a woman with neat braids looked up from her sewing machine. What do you want? She asked. I can clean, arrange, help customers, Zina said quickly. The woman studied her for a moment. What is your name? Zina. I am Lima, the woman said. Can you use your hands? Zina nodded. I am not skilled, but I learn fast. Lima handed her a piece of cloth. Fold these and arrange them by color. Zina worked carefully, her fingers moving slowly but with care. After a while, Lima nodded. You can come back tomorrow. I will pay you small, but you can grow. Zina felt a lightness in her chest. Thank you. I will not disappoint you. As she left the shop, she felt the first small sense of hope since leaving Kavuno. It was not much, but it was something she could hold on to. Weeks passed, and Zina's life settled into a quiet routine. She cleaned the shop in the mornings, arranged clothes, and listened to customers talk about their lives. Lima was strict but fair. One afternoon, a well-dressed man walked into the shop. He wore a simple dark jacket, but his shoes were polished and his watch shone softly. Lima straightened. Welcome, she said. The man smiled. I need a suit adjusted. As Lima measured him, Zina handed over pins and thread. The man glanced at her. You are new here, he said. Zina nodded. Yes, sir. Call me Kiro, he said. You work quietly. She smiled politely. After he left, Lima looked at Zina. That man is not ordinary, she said. Zina shrugged. He looks like many people here. Lima shook her head. Nyara City hides big people in simple clothes. Zina laughed softly, not knowing that this small meeting would one day change the direction of her life in ways she could not imagine. That evening, Zina sat alone in her small room, counting her small earnings. It was not much, but it paid for her food and bed. She picked up her phone and scrolled through old photos of her and Reno. In one picture, they were smiling by the river in Kavuno, young and hopeful. She whispered to herself, was that life real, or was it only a dream? Her phone rang suddenly. It was Reno's sister, Nara. Zina, Nara said, her voice low. My brother is angry that you left. He says you embarrassed him. Zina closed her eyes. He embarrassed me long before I left. Nara hesitated. People are saying he is planning to marry again. Zina's chest tightened, but she forced her voice to stay calm. He is free to do what he wants. After the call ended, Zina sat in silence. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled her breathing. She was learning to carry it without letting it break her. One rainy afternoon, Zina felt dizzy while arranging fabric at the shop. The room seemed to spin. Lima noticed and rushed to her side. Sit down, Lima said firmly. You look pale. Zina shook her head. I am fine. Maybe I did not eat well. Lima frowned. You have been tired lately. Go to the clinic. Don't argue. At the small clinic nearby, a nurse checked Zina and asked a few questions. When was your last monthly cycle? The nurse asked gently. Zina froze. She thought for a moment, then her eyes widened. I don't remember. The nurse exchanged a look with the doctor. Let us run a test, the doctor said. Zina's heart pounded as she waited. Memories of words like barren and empty echoed in her mind. When the doctor returned, his face was calm but warm. You are pregnant, he said. Zina stared at him, her lips trembling. That is not possible. The doctor smiled softly. Sometimes life waits for the right moment. Zina's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were not only from pain. They were from a fragile, terrifying hope she did not yet know how to hold. Zina walked out of the clinic, holding a small paper like it was glass. The rain had slowed to a soft drizzle, and the streets of Nyara City shone with wet light. She stood under a shop awning, staring at the words again and again as if they might change. Pregnant. The word felt too big for her mouth, too bright for her wounded life. Her first thought wasn't joy. It was fear. How? She whispered to herself. After all those years, how now? She pressed a hand to her belly, not feeling anything yet, but imagining everything. She remembered Reno's voice calling her Barren, remembered his mother's sharp tongue, the way neighbors stared at her like she was a broken pot. Lima's voice echoed in her mind. Nyara City hides big things. Zina took a shaky breath and walked back to the tailoring shop. When she entered, Lima looked up immediately. Well? Lima asked. Zina's lips trembled. I am pregnant. Lima blinked once, then twice. What did you say? I am pregnant, Zina repeated, more firmly this time. For a moment, Lima said nothing. Then her face softened. Sit. Breathe. Zina sat down hard on a stool. I don't understand it. They said I could not. Lima waved her hand. Doctors talk like they are gods. Life has its own plan. Zina stared at her hands. What will I do? Lima leaned closer. First, you will stop shaking like a leaf. Second, you will eat. And third, she paused, eyes sharp, you will protect yourself. Not everybody needs to know your miracle. That night, Zina couldn't sleep. She kept waking up to check if her body still felt real. She imagined the small life inside her, imagined a tiny heart beating quietly in the dark. Then fear would return like a storm. Reno. If Reno found out, would he come running back? Would he try to claim what he once rejected? In the morning, she called Mira. Her cousin answered immediately. Mira, Zina said, voice shaking. I need to tell you something. You sound serious. What happened? Zina swallowed. I went to the clinic. They said, I'm pregnant. There was a long silence. Then Mira screamed so loudly Zina had to pull the phone away. You're pregnant? Zina, are you sure? I am sure, Zina said, a small laugh breaking through her tears. But I'm scared. Scared of what? Mira asked. Zina's voice dropped. Of people. Of Reno. Of this town that called me names. Of losing it. Mira softened. Listen to me. Don't go back to Kavuno. Not yet. Let your body rest. Let the pregnancy settle. Zina breathed out slowly. I don't even know if I can do this alone. You won't be alone, Mira promised. If you need me, I'll come. Zina whispered, "Thank you." When she ended the call, her eyes drifted to the ceiling. She had prayed for this for years. Now that it was here, she realized a miracle could still feel like a battle. Months passed, and Zina's belly began to show. Lima made sure she ate properly, even when money was tight. She would scold Zina like a stubborn child. "Eat," Lima insisted one morning, pushing a plate toward her. Zina sighed. "I am not hungry." "You are hungry." "The baby is hungry," Lima said. "And if you don't eat, I will force you." Zina laughed faintly. "You talk like you are my mother." Lima raised an eyebrow. "Maybe you need one in this city." At the clinic checkup, the nurse smiled. "Your blood pressure is good, but you must reduce stress." Zina almost laughed. How does someone reduce stress when life is a question mark? The nurse's smile faded into kindness. "You have suffered, but you are still here. That means you are stronger than the shame people tried to give you." Zina left the clinic feeling lighter. She walked slowly back to the shop, the rain-washed air cool on her skin. Inside the shop, she noticed a familiar figure near the window, Kiro. He was looking at fabrics while speaking quietly to Lima. When he saw Zina, his eyes paused on her belly for a second, then moved back to her face respectfully. "Good afternoon, Zina," he said calmly. "Good afternoon, Kiro," she replied, suddenly self-conscious. Kiro's voice was gentle. "I see you are carrying life. Congratulations." Zina nodded, unsure what to say. Kiro smiled softly. "May your days be peaceful." He left after placing an order, but his calm presence stayed in the room like warm tea. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the city buildings, Zina was closing the shop with Lima when they heard shouting outside. Two young men argued near the road, and the argument quickly turned into pushing. Zina froze. Loud voices always made her heart race. Lima grabbed her arm. "Go inside," she ordered. But as Zina turned, one of the men stumbled backward and nearly fell into her. She jumped back, slipping on the wet ground. Her stomach tightened with fear. A strong hand caught her elbow before she hit the ground. "Careful," a familiar voice said. Zina looked up and saw Kiro standing beside her, steady and calm. "I thank you," she whispered, shocked by how close she came to falling. Kiro's eyes moved to her belly again, protective without being rude. "You should not be outside when people are fighting," he said. Zina nodded quickly. "Yes." The men ran off when another passerby shouted at them. Kiro turned to Zina again. "You live nearby?" he asked. "Yes," she answered, pointing. "Just 2 streets away." Kiro frowned slightly. "At night, the streets can be unsafe. Do you have someone with you?" Zina hesitated. "No." Kiro looked at Lima. "Can someone walk her home?" Lima crossed her arms. "I can. But why do you care?" Kiro didn't look offended. "Because she is human. Because she is carrying a child. That should be enough." Zina's throat tightened. She hadn't heard words like that in years. From that night, Kiro began appearing at the shop more often. Not every day, but enough for Zina to notice. Sometimes he brought fabric, sometimes he asked about an order, sometimes he just greeted politely and left. One afternoon, he waited while Lima adjusted his jacket. He glanced at Zina. "How are you feeling today?" he asked. Zina shrugged. "Some days I am strong. Some days I feel like glass." Kiro nodded like he understood. "Glass can still hold light," he said quietly. Zina blinked. "That is a strange way to comfort someone." Kiro smiled. "I don't know many sweet words. But I know life is heavy when people have thrown stones at you." Zina's chest warmed, and she hated that her heart reacted so quickly. Lima watched them with sharp eyes. Later, when Kiro left, Lima leaned close to Zina. "That man has eyes," Lima whispered. Zina frowned. "Eyes? He looks at you like he sees you," Lima said. "Not like he is measuring your value." Zina's voice turned quiet. "I don't want trouble." Lima shrugged. "Trouble sometimes finds you, whether you invite it or not." Zina looked away. Love had once felt like home. Now, even kindness made her cautious. Near the end of her pregnancy, Zina began feeling unusually tired. Her feet swelled, and sometimes she felt breathless even when sitting still. The nurse at the clinic frowned during one visit. "You must rest more," the nurse said. Zina forced a smile. "If I rest, I don't eat." The nurse sighed. "Then find a way to eat and still rest." Outside the clinic, Zina ran into Kiro again, as if the city kept crossing their paths. He noticed her slow steps immediately. "You are not well," he said. "I'm fine," she lied. Kiro didn't argue. He simply pointed to a nearby cafe. "Sit. I will buy you tea." Zina hesitated. I can't. Don't turn everything into pride, Kiro said, calm but firm. Sometimes pride is just fear wearing a nice dress. Zina stared at him, stunned. Then she followed him inside. Over tea, Kiro spoke quietly. I heard from Lima that you work too hard. Zina's eyes widened. She talks too much. Kiro smiled faintly. She cares. So do I. Zina's voice cracked. Why? Kiro held her gaze. Because I know what it means to be judged. People look at you and decide your story without reading the pages. Zina looked down at her cup. My story is painful. Kiro's voice softened. Then let it change. 2 weeks later, Zina went into labor at night. The pain came suddenly, like her body was splitting. She cried out in her small room, sweating and shaking. Lima, who had insisted on staying with her as her due date approached, rushed to her side. It's time, Lima said, grabbing her phone. Breathe, Zina. Don't fight your body. Zina clutched her stomach. I'm scared. I can't do it. Yes, you can, Lima snapped, then softened. You've survived worse than pain. They got to the clinic quickly. The nurse took one look at Zina and shouted for help. Hours passed in a blur of pushing, crying, prayers, and hands holding her down while her body tried to open itself. At some point, the doctor's face changed. Wait, the doctor said sharply. Something is different. Zina's eyes widened. What? What is wrong? The doctor exchanged quick words with the nurse. Then he looked back at Zina. You are having twins, he said. Zina froze. Twins? Yes, the doctor confirmed. That is why the pregnancy was heavier. That is why you were exhausted. Zina began to sob, half in fear, half in disbelief. 2 babies. 2 lives. The world she was building quietly in Nyara City just turned into something bigger than she had ever imagined. By morning, Zina lay weak on the clinic bed, her body aching, her lips dry. She turned her head slowly and saw 2 small bundles beside her. The nurse lifted one gently. Meet your son, the nurse said. Zina stared at the tiny face and broke into tears. He is real, she whispered. The nurse lifted the other bundle. And this is your daughter. Zina's chest shook with silent sobs as she reached out, touching their tiny fingers. Lima sat beside her, eyes red from crying too. You did it, Lima whispered. Zina couldn't speak. She only nodded, overwhelmed. Later that day, Mira arrived from Kavuno, breathless and excited. She rushed in and froze when she saw the babies. Zina, Mira whispered. Zina tried to smile. 2. Mira burst into tears. 2. After all the insults, after all the pain. Zina's voice was weak but steady. Don't tell Reno. Not yet. Mira wiped her cheeks. I won't. But why? Zina stared at her babies. Because this is mine first. Let me heal before the world tries to grab it. Mira nodded slowly. Okay. We protect you. As if the universe had its own timing, Zina's phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. Lima glanced at the screen. Answer, she said. Zina hesitated, then picked up. Hello. A familiar calm voice replied. Zina. It's Kiro. Lima told me you went to the clinic. Are you safe? Zina's heart raced. Kiro? How did you? I asked, Kiro replied simply. Are you okay? Zina swallowed, tears rising again. I had the babies. A pause, then Kiro's voice softened. Babies. Twins, Zina whispered. For a moment, he said nothing, as if the word carried weight. Then he spoke carefully. Congratulations. I would like to see you if you allow it. Zina looked at Lima, unsure. Lima nodded firmly like it was normal. Okay, Zina said quietly. That afternoon, Kiro arrived with a small bag of baby items and fruit. He walked into the room respectfully, not rushing, not acting like he owned anything. When he saw the twins, his eyes warmed. They're beautiful, he said. Zina watched him closely. Most men in my life looked at me like I was a disappointment, she said. You look at my children like they are a blessing. Kiro placed the bag down gently. Because they are, he said. Mira stared at him curiously. Who are you? She asked bluntly. Kiro smiled politely. A friend. Lima cleared her throat, amused. A friend that buys tea and baby clothes. Kiro didn't deny it. He looked at Zina. You have suffered enough. Let help not feel like an insult. Zina's eyes filled. I don't know how to accept good things. Kiro's voice was low. Then learn. Slowly. Outside the clinic window, Nyara City moved on like nothing had happened. But inside that room, Zina felt her life shifting again. Not through pain this time, but through unexpected care. A week later, Zina returned to her room with the twins. Mira stayed to help, and Lima checked on her daily. Zina named the boy Tavo and the girl Seli, names that sounded like fresh beginnings. But peace never stays quiet for long. One evening, Mira entered the room with her phone in her hand, face tense. "Zina," Mira said slowly. "Someone from Kavuno called me." Zina's stomach tightened. "Who?" Mira hesitated. "Reno's mother." Zina's grip tightened around Seli. "What did she say?" Mira swallowed. "She said Reno is marrying another woman next month." Zina felt a sharp sting, even though she had expected it. She forced herself to breathe. "He can." Myra's voice dropped. "But that's not all." She said, "They heard rumors you are in Nyara City. They want to know why you left without begging." Zina's eyes narrowed. "They missed their punching bag." Mira nodded. "And Zina?" "Reno asked if you are seeing someone." Zina laughed bitterly. "He wants to own me even after throwing me out." Mira leaned closer. "What do we do?" Zina looked down at her twins, their faces calm in sleep. "We stay quiet," she said. "For now." Outside, rain started again, tapping softly on the roof like a warning. Zina felt it in her bones. The past had not finished calling her name. And somewhere in Kavuno, Reno was living his life, confident that Zina was still the woman he left behind. He had no idea that Zina now held not one, but two miracles, and that her story was no longer written by his mouth. News travels fast in towns like Kavuno, but it travels in strange shapes. By the time whispers reached Reno's ears, the story had already twisted. One evening, as he sat outside his mother's house, a neighbor leaned close and spoke in a low voice. "They say Zina is in Nyara City," the neighbor said. Reno snorted. "Let her be. That city swallows weak people." The neighbor scratched his head. "They also say she changed. That she looks different." Reno laughed. "People like to talk when they have nothing to do." But when he went inside, the words stayed with him. He remembered Zina's quiet strength, the way she used to endure his anger without fighting back. A small doubt crept in. Change how? He wondered. He shook the thought away. His wedding was close. His new fiancée, Rava, was young, lively, and already praised by his family. "She will give me sons," his mother said proudly one afternoon. Reno nodded, but that night he dreamed of Zina standing on the Kavuno road, her back to him, walking away without looking back. In Nyara City, Zina slowly learned the rhythm of life with twins. Sleep came in short pieces. Her body ached, but her heart felt fuller than it ever had. One afternoon, as she rocked Seli, Lima arrived with food. "You look tired," Lima said. Zina smiled weakly. "I am tired, but I am happy." Lima placed the bowl down. Happiness is loud when it is new. When it grows older, it becomes quiet strength. Zina looked at her babies. "I want quiet strength." A knock came at the door. When Zina opened it, she found Kiro standing there, holding a small bag. "I brought diapers," he said simply. Zina hesitated, then stepped aside. "Thank you." Kiro looked around the small room, careful not to step on anything. "You live simply," he observed. Zina nodded. "Simple is safe." Kiro glanced at the twins. "May I?" She nodded, and he gently touched Tavo's tiny hand. "They trust easily," he said. Zina's voice was soft. "I hope the world will be kinder to them than it was to me." Kiro met her eyes. "Then build them a kinder world." One evening, Zina sat outside with Mira, watching the city lights flicker. Mira broke the silence. "Kiro comes often," she said casually. Zina sighed. "He is just kind." Mira raised an eyebrow. "Kind men don't check on you every 2 days." Zina's voice dropped. "Kindness can be dangerous to people who have been hurt." Mira nodded slowly. "True. But not every gentle hand is there to push you down." Zina hugged her knees. "I don't want to give my heart to someone who might one day remind me of Reno." Mira frowned. "Kiro is not Reno." Zina shook her head. "You don't know that yet. People show their worst when they think they own you." Mira touched her shoulder. "Then don't let anyone own you. Let them walk beside you." Zina thought about that long after Mira went inside. She watched Kiro's figure pass down the street below, unaware of the quiet war happening in her chest between fear and hope. Kiro did not push. He came when invited, left when it was late, and never spoke promises. One afternoon, as he helped carry water into Zina's room, she finally asked, "Kiro, what do you do for a living?" He paused, then smiled lightly. "I invest." Zina blinked. "Invest in what?" "Businesses. Ideas. People," he replied. That sounds vague, she said. Kiro laughed softly. It is safer to be vague in a city that eats secrets. Zina studied his face. People in Kavuno love to show what they have. Big houses. Loud clothes. Kiro shrugged. Nyara City teaches you to hide what you have. Loud things attract the wrong ears. Zina nodded slowly. She didn't fully understand his world, but she felt he was not lying. Later, when he left, Lima leaned in. That man is not poor. Zina smiled faintly. Rich men can also be broken. Lima scoffed. Broken rich men still eat well. Zina laughed, the sound surprising even herself. In Kavuno, preparations for Reno's wedding filled the air. Rava visited the market with Reno's mother, smiling shyly as women praised her beauty. You are lucky, one woman said. Your husband will finally have children. Rava smiled, though her eyes flickered with uncertainty. That night, Rava asked Reno, why do people talk about your first wife like she was a bad omen? Reno's jaw tightened. Because she was. Rava hesitated. What if she wasn't? What if life just... Reno cut her off. Don't start defending someone who failed me. Rava fell silent, but a small seed of doubt was planted. Elsewhere in the town, Reno's younger cousin whispered to another man. I heard Zina is in Nyara City. Some say she is doing well. The man laughed. Doing well? A woman alone in the city. But rumors, once born, refused to die. Back in Nyara City, Zina received a call from an unknown number. She stared at the screen, heart racing, then answered. Hello. Zina, a familiar voice said. It was Reno. Her body went cold. Why are you calling me? I heard you are in Nyara City, Reno said. Zina's voice was calm but firm. You heard right. Are you okay? He asked, the question sounding more curious than caring. I am alive, she replied. Reno hesitated. People say you look different. Zina smiled bitterly. People talk too much. There was a pause. I'm getting married, Reno said. I heard, Zina replied. I thought you should know, he added. Zina's voice was steady. I wish you peace. When the call ended, her hands trembled. Mira, who had been listening from the doorway, rushed in. You're shaking, Mira said. Zina hugged her babies closer. Some voices still carry old wounds. Mira nodded. But they don't control your life anymore. Zina breathed out slowly. No, they don't. The days before Reno's wedding grew loud in Kavuno. Drums were prepared, chairs arranged, and neighbors gossiped freely. Reno's mother boasted about her future grandchildren. She will give us a full house, she said proudly. Reno smiled, but inside, a strange restlessness stirred. Zina's calm voice on the phone haunted him. She had not begged. She had not cried. That unsettled him more than anger ever did. At night, he found himself thinking about the years he spent calling her names. He brushed the thoughts away, telling himself he had done nothing wrong. Men deserve heirs, he muttered to himself. But somewhere in his chest, a question he refused to answer kept knocking. One evening, Kiro invited Zina to walk outside with the twins. The air was cool, and the street lights cast soft shadows. You rarely leave this room, Kiro said gently. Zina nodded. Safety became my habit. Kiro looked at her. Safety can become a cage. She sighed. Freedom once cost me everything. Kiro slowed his steps. Freedom also gives back, sometimes slowly. Zina watched her children sleeping peacefully. Do you believe people can start again? Kiro answered without hesitation. Yes. I have done it. Zina glanced at him, curious. From what? He smiled faintly. From being invisible. Zina didn't press. Some stories were not ready to be told. As Reno's wedding day approached, a rumor reached Kavuno that Zina had given birth. The rumor was weak at first, carried by someone who had visited Nyara City and claimed to have seen her. She had a baby, the man said. Another shook his head. Impossible. That woman was Barren. The rumor twisted again by morning. They say she had two. Reno's mother laughed loudly. People want stories. My son's wife could not even conceive one. But Rava overheard the whispers and felt her heart tighten. That night, she asked Reno again. Are you sure about your past? Reno snapped. Stop asking about her. Rava turned away, troubled. The past was knocking on their door, and none of them knew how loud it would soon become. In Nyara City, Zina stood by the window, holding Seli while Tavo slept on her chest. The city lights blinked like distant stars. Lima entered quietly. You look like you are thinking too much again. Zina smiled faintly. The past called me today. Lima scoffed. Tell it to lose your number. Zina laughed softly. I wish it were that easy. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a message came through from an unknown contact. "We heard you have children now. Is it true?" Zina stared at the screen, heart pounding. Lima leaned over her shoulder. "Don't reply." Zina nodded slowly. "Not yet." She turned her eyes back to the window. Somewhere in Kavuno, people were preparing for celebration, believing their story was finished. Zina pressed her lips to her children's heads. "Our story is only beginning," she whispered. The message about Zina's children did not stop. By morning, 3 different numbers had asked the same question. She turned her phone face down and focused on feeding Selly. Mira watched her carefully. "You can't hide forever," she said gently. Zina replied, "I'm not hiding. I'm protecting what is mine." A knock came at the door. When Zina opened it, Kiro stood there with a calm face and a worried look in his eyes. "Are you all right?" he asked. Zina hesitated, then showed him the messages. Kiro's jaw tightened. People don't ask gently when they smell a story. Zina sighed. "I don't want Kavuno to touch this part of my life." Kiro nodded. "Then we control the timing." She looked at him, surprised. "We." He met her eyes. "You don't have to stand alone when the crowd comes." That afternoon, Kiro asked Zina to come with him to an appointment. "I don't like leaving the babies," she said. "They will be safe with Lima and Mira," he replied. Reluctantly, she agreed. They drove across Nyara City in a quiet car that felt too clean for her small life. "Your car is different," Zina said, trying not to sound impressed. Kiro smiled slightly. "It works." They arrived at a tall glass building. Security greeted Kiro by name and waved them through. Zina slowed her steps. "Where are we?" she asked. "My office," Kiro said simply. Inside, people nodded respectfully at him. A woman in a neat suit hurried toward them. "Sir, the board is ready," she said. Zina froze. "Board?" Kiro glanced at her. "I should have told you. I manage investments for several companies." Zina whispered, "This is not a small life." Kiro's voice was low. "I learned to hide the size of my life so it doesn't swallow people I care about." In the meeting room, Zina sat quietly while Kiro spoke in calm, steady tones. The people around the table listened carefully, nodding as he spoke about projects, land, and growth. When it ended, one of the men smiled at Zina. "You must be family." Zina stiffened. Kiro answered smoothly, "She is important to me." The words stayed with her long after they left the building. Outside, she finally spoke. "You never told me you were this." Kiro exhaled. "This? Powerful," she said. He shook his head. "Power is loud. I prefer influence." Zina studied him. "Why me?" Kiro paused. "Because you didn't look at me like money when you first saw me. You looked at me like a person." Zina felt her chest tighten. No one had ever thanked her for that. On the drive back, silence wrapped around them. Finally, Zina spoke. "If Reno finds out who you are, he will think I planned everything." Kiro glanced at her. "Did you?" She shook her head quickly. "No. I didn't even know what I was planning for myself." Kiro nodded. "People believe what fits their pride." Zina sighed. "Kavuno will say I left because I found a rich man." Kiro replied gently, "You left because you were bleeding." The words hit her deeply. At her building, Kiro stopped the car. "When the time comes to face Kavuno, you won't go alone." Zina looked at him. "I'm not ready." He nodded. "We prepare, then." In Kavuno, Reno's wedding day arrived with drums and singing. The town gathered, colorful clothes filling the dusty road. Rava sat quietly beside Reno, her smile forced. Reno's mother leaned over. "Soon you will give us grandchildren." Rava nodded, uneasy. As the ceremony began, a man whispered to Reno, "They say your ex-wife had twins." Reno laughed loudly. "People are mad." But his laughter sounded hollow even to himself. Later that evening, alone for a moment, he stared at his phone and typed Zina's name into his contacts. He didn't call. He couldn't explain why his chest felt tight. Back in Nyara City, Kiro began arranging small things quietly. He spoke to a driver about routes to Kavuno. He asked Lima about Zina's old neighborhood. Lima raised an eyebrow. "You plan to take her back?" Kiro answered calmly. "Only when she chooses." Lima nodded. "Kavuno people have long mouths." Kiro replied, "Then we go with quiet strength." Zina noticed the preparations. "Why are you asking about Kavuno?" she asked. Kiro met her eyes. "Because hiding forever turns wounds into shadows. One day, shadows step out." Zina looked at her babies. "I want them to walk into light, not gossip." Kiro said softly, "Then we shape the light." One evening, Zina received a call from Nara, Reno's sister. Zina, Nara said carefully, is it true you had children? Zina hesitated, then answered, yes. Nara gasped. Two. Yes. Silence followed. Then Nara whispered, our mother will not sleep if she hears this. Zina's voice was calm. Your mother already slept while I cried. Nara swallowed. Reno, he doesn't know. Zina closed her eyes. He doesn't need to. But the truth was already walking toward Kavuno with its own feet. Kiro invited Zina to sit with him that night after the babies slept. You are afraid of going back, he said gently. Yes, Zina admitted. Not because I am weak. Because I remember who I was there. Kiro nodded. You don't return as who you were. You return as who you are. Zina studied him. And who am I? He smiled. A woman who carried two lives through shame and silence. Tears filled her eyes. Kiro added quietly, you don't owe Kavuno forgiveness. But you owe yourself peace. Zina looked at her hands. Peace feels like a stranger. Kiro said, then let it become family. Rumors hardened into belief in Kavuno. Someone who visited Nyara City swore they saw Zina with babies and a man who owned a big office building. Reno's mother dismissed it loudly. Lies. But Rava listened quietly, her heart sinking. That night, Rava asked Reno, if Zina had children, would you regret how you treated her? Reno snapped, don't bring her name into my house. Rava turned away, whispering to herself. Some names return whether you invite them or not. Zina's phone rang again. This time it was Reno himself. I heard things, he said without greeting. Zina replied calmly, then don't listen to things. Are you with another man? Reno asked sharply. Zina laughed softly. You threw me out. You don't get to ask that. Reno's voice hardened. People say you have children. Zina paused. People say many things. Is it true? He pressed. Zina looked at Tavo sleeping in her arms. Even if it were, it would not belong to you. Reno fell silent. The call ended without goodbye. That silence haunted Reno more than any insult. He paced his new house, hearing Zina's calm voice in his head. It sounded stronger than the woman he remembered. Rava watched him from the doorway. You are not present, she said. Reno snapped. Mind your business. Rava's voice trembled. I am your wife. Your heart is not here. Reno said nothing. The truth he refused to face stood between them like a wall. In Nyara City, Zina finally told Kiro about the call. He still thinks he owns a part of my life, she said. Kiro's jaw tightened. No one owns you. Zina looked at him. Sometimes I forget that. Kiro replied. Then let me remind you until you remember it yourself. Zina breathed out slowly. The weight on her chest felt lighter. Mira approached Zina one morning. We can't keep this quiet forever. Kavuno will find you. Zina nodded. I know, Mira added. When they do, go with your head high. Zina looked at her children. I will. From the window, she watched the city wake up. Nyara City had rebuilt her piece by piece. Kavuno had broken her. Both places were part of her story. Kiro arranged a small gathering at his home, inviting only a few people Zina trusted. The space was warm, quiet, far from noise. This is where I think, Kiro said. Zina looked around, surprised by the simple beauty. You live quietly for someone with such a big life. Kiro smiled. Loud homes attract loud pain. Zina laughed softly. You speak in lessons. Kiro replied, life taught me. For the first time in a long while, Zina felt safe in a place that did not feel temporary. That night, Zina stood on Kiro's balcony, holding Selly while watching the city lights. I don't know when I'll be ready to return to Kavuno, she said quietly. Kiro stood beside her, not touching her, respecting the space she still guarded. When you are, he said, we go on your terms. Zina nodded, her voice steady. I don't want revenge. I want truth. Kiro replied. Truth is louder than revenge when it arrives quietly. Zina kissed her daughter's head and whispered, we will go back one day. Not to beg, not to explain, but to stand. The decision to return to Kavuno did not come with drums or loud words. It came on a quiet morning when Zina watched the twins sleep and felt a calm settle in her chest. I'm ready, she said softly to Kiro. He nodded, as if he had been waiting for that sentence. Then we go when you choose. Zina looked at her children. Not for them to see my pain, she added, but for them to see my strength. Kiro smiled faintly. Strength travels better than anger. The road to Kavuno felt longer than she remembered. The hills looked the same, but Zina felt like a different woman sitting in the car. As they passed the old bus stop, memories rushed in. Her tears, her shaking hands, the night she left with nothing but a small bag. Mira sat beside her. "You don't have to prove anything," she whispered. Zina replied, "I'm not proving. I'm arriving." They entered Kavuno quietly. People turned to look, curiosity lighting their faces when they saw Zina step out of the car with 2 babies in her arms. Whispers followed her steps. "That's her. The one they called Barren." Zina held her head high and walked through the murmurs. Reno saw her first from across the market square. The sound around him faded as his eyes fixed on the babies. His chest tightened. "Zina," he called out, unsure if the woman before him was real. She turned slowly. "Reno." The town seemed to hold its breath. Reno stepped closer, his voice trembling. Are those yours?" Zina looked at her children, then back at him. "Yes. These are my children." A murmur spread through the crowd. Reno's mother pushed forward, eyes wide. "You said she was barren." Zina met her gaze calmly. "You said it. I survived it." Rava stood a few steps behind Reno, watching everything with silent eyes. Reno's voice cracked. "Zina, why didn't you tell me?" Zina's answer was steady. "Because you didn't ask with kindness when I was yours." Reno lowered his eyes. "I was cruel." Zina nodded. "Yes, you were." The crowd began to whisper louder. Some women shook their heads in disbelief. Some men avoided Zina's eyes. Zina lifted her voice just enough to be heard. "I did not come to shame anyone. I came to close a chapter." She looked at Reno. "You broke me with your words. But life rebuilt me when I walked away." Reno took a step back, shame washing over his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Zina studied him for a moment, then shook her head gently. "Sorry does not return lost years. But it frees me from carrying your cruelty." She turned slightly, creating space between them. Reno's mother began to cry. "We were wrong," she said weakly. Zina's voice softened, but her boundary remained firm. "You were wrong when I was bleeding. Today I am healed." She shifted the babies in her arms, their calm breathing grounding her. Kiro stepped forward, not loudly, not with pride, simply standing beside Zina. "Who is this?" someone asked. Zina answered quietly. "Someone who stood by me when I had nothing." Kiro nodded to the crowd with respect, offering no explanations. His presence alone changed the air. Reno looked at Kiro, then back at Zina. "Is he your husband?" Zina smiled softly. "He is not my past. That is all you need to know." The answer closed a door Reno had kept open in his heart. Zina took a slow breath and turned to the people of Kavuno. "I left this town in tears," she said. "I return without anger. If you called me barren, release that word today. It does not belong to me." Some people lowered their heads. Others nodded in quiet agreement. Rava stepped forward, her voice gentle. "I wish you peace," she said to Zina. Zina met her eyes and nodded. "I wish you wisdom." There was no bitterness in her tone, only clarity. As Zina walked away from the square, the whispers did not follow her as loudly as she expected. The road out of Kavuno felt different this time. Not like escape, like completion. Mira squeezed her hand. "You did it." Zina smiled. "I didn't fight. I just stood." Back in Nyara City, Zina stood at her window that night, watching the twins sleep peacefully. Kiro sat nearby, quiet as always. "I used to think my worth was tied to what I couldn't give," Zina said softly. "Now I know my worth was always mine." Kiro replied, "And the world only learned it when you stopped begging it to see." Zina smiled, her heart finally still. The woman who left Kavuno in tears had returned with truth, and the woman who came back had left with peace. Please like, subscribe, share, and tell us the country you're watching from.